Hi guys, Rick Moore here, co-founder of BidPoint, and I've got the founder of Avion Energy, Joe Mitiga here, doing our Friday call. Lots of great things going on. In fact, lots of great things going on this morning. Lots of great things going on this week, and obviously we're having a great month, and we plan on having a lot of great months, and plan on you guys all being a part of those months, and some of you already are, and some of you will be. So that's what I'm excited about. So, Joe, I know we usually kind of go through the week and pick up some topics, and to be honest with you, I'm so scrambled this morning I forget what the topics are, but that's why you're here to clean this up, right? So, so I appreciate you coming in and being on the call and sharing some wisdom with the folks. I want to say one thing, though, Joe. What do you think about, like, BidPoint, we're in our third year, but thinking about the last 120 days as compared to the previous 2 years, how would you compare those things?
Sure. And Rick, thanks for having me on the call. And the good thing about you and I, Rick, and the good thing about me, I learned years ago, I have to write everything down. And so as we talk, I bullet point things. Otherwise, I wouldn't remember it either. So, and I have the same piece of paper, to work off of. So thanks for having me on the call, and look forward to sharing. That's a great place to start today's call, because I want to get into two different topics, and I can spin off right from where Rick is, what the question Rick just asked. I want to talk about the sales cycle, not your sales cycle, not the sales cycle of the field agent, though what happens once your information goes in, to what seems like a black hole sometimes for people, what has to happen to the information on our side, and then when it comes back out, what do we need to do with it? And the best way to start this call is because I want to explain our side, the broker side of things, as clear as I can for people, let them know. It'll help people understand the timing and why sometimes deals take longer than others. And, the reason we can do it and we're so successful is we took the time needed from day 1 to day 4 years, somewhere in that neighborhood, maybe 5 on the Avion side, to build everything so people could come today and function. The difference with BidPoint, we call the BidPoint launch date August 11th, 2 years ago, whatever that be, 2/15. But in reality, was that really the day we launched? No. That was the day we started. And, Rick and I, we have the same types of personalities. Jim and I have the same types of personalities. We had a decision to make 2.5 years ago, and that decision was, do we take the time, get everything perfect, get all the marketing, get everything done and perfect, and then introduce it to field agents? Or do we do everything it takes to build, to grow, to create, everything it takes to market in front of the field agents, quite honestly, and that's what we did for the first 2 years. So really, in that first 2-year period of time, we weren't really at a spot, and we knew we weren't at a spot. That's why, we made sure that the recruiting numbers were slower. It made sure that we took more time with the people in the field, because the systems weren't created yet for people to really get involved, get it moving, and explode. We knew we didn't want explosion when it came from field agent side 2 years ago, because from the marketing perspective, we weren't ready. We just weren't ready. And but now we are. The biggest difference between the two, I can say today, now we are. And what are we ready for? We're ready for, quite honestly, what's literally started to happen 2 months ago, 3 months ago. We're ready for somebody to get involved, watch all the videos, get launched by Rick, get Rick on the phone with some people, build a book of business, and then duplicate out in the field. And we're ready for it now, where the first 2 years of where we call the launch of BidPoint were really the creating of the system, the creating of the method, the creating of the marketing. We were creating it over that 2-year period of time. Now, the good news is we have people that joined day one. We have people that joined yesterday. The opportunity for everybody's the same today, and we are deeply grateful for the people that, got involved from day one. They watched us go through changes. They watched us go through some mistakes. They watched us figure things out a little bit as we go. So today, and I won't say it's 100% perfect. I don't know if it ever becomes 100% perfect because we're open and flexible and we want to expand a system that's good. We just want to continue to make it better. So will it ever be 100? I doubt it, but I can say we're well in excess of 90+% now, which means, and what does that really mean? It means from the field side of things, you can get involved today or a week ago or a month ago, and what you're going to be seeing, what you're going to be experiencing is just a smooth system that works, and that's the key. From day one, when we started all of this at Avion, we did the same thing. The difference is back then, what we were building back then is the structure, the broker side structure, the bidding process with the suppliers, the relationships with the suppliers. That was my job, in the very beginning days. I had two jobs. My first job was as the founder of Avion. My job was to attract people that could run and build and grow the business, run the day-to-day. Mr. Jim Sharon, my partner, is the man responsible for the day-to-day interactions of Avion. And, I could go on for 45 minutes just about Jim's qualifications and expertise. But one of the things Jim is really, really good at is attracting people that are really good at their potentials and what they do with Avion. We've got a stellar team today. So my job was to attract people to run the business. My job was to create the relationships with these billion-dollar suppliers so we could get in contractual agreements with them, which we have 70 plus of those now, the suppliers, like Rick said earlier. If it's deregulated, we can have a competitive presence there. In fact, if it's competitive, we can bring every one of the top 30 largest retail energy suppliers in the country to the table and get them bidding on the business in any deregulated market. And that's something we're extremely proud of. And the other thing my role was to create the system or help to create the system that once the data comes to us, once the information comes to us, meaning comes to Avion, what happens to it? Now, my other role in the very beginning was I was the founding field agent. I was that first person out there. I was the person that walked out and said, okay, who do I talk to? What do I say? What do we do? How does it work? And who else can I get to help me do it? So I had a dual message always. How can I help a client? How can I help somebody secure their financial futures? And hence we grew. Now we're 9+ years old. So today, what I want to focus on is a couple different things, but the main thing that makes us so overwhelmingly unique, it isn't just that we have the 70+ suppliers. It's actually closer to 80, but Jim likes me to undertone that a little bit. We're close to 80 suppliers out there that want business from us. That's very unique, but if you didn't have a system in place where you could access all of them, which you could do it efficiently, it really would mean nothing. If it all had to be manual, if it all had to be done paperwork at a time, one piece of paper at a time, it just wouldn't be. We would get the job done, but we wouldn't be able to allow things to explode, as we call it. And I'm going to talk about the explosion potential later, because that's where the largest dollars for your personal incomes will be as your business explodes. So what we had to do is we had all these suppliers, and all of what I'm getting ready to talk about now, our Direct Connect portal. What that is, it's a patent-pending technology we created. It started with a man that his name's Brett Kettlewell. Brett and Jim and I met in our favorite office at the time, the last booth over at the Waffle House, our local Waffle House, and we explained to Brett what we wanted to do. Brett's IT experience, I couldn't even tell you the acronyms of all of the education the man's got. I don't know. I just really know that he knows. I know some of his clientele in the past or a couple of the large credit bureaus, where they're dealing with multiple hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of bits of data. So Brett is the mastermind. He's the intelligence behind our Direct Connect portal. Jim and I created the structure that we wanted to be able to allow duplication in the field to happen. We knew that we had to do things efficiently, not just effectively. The 70 suppliers gives us an effective result. So if every deal took 4 months to do, nobody could make any money and nobody could build a business. So we had to create a technology. It's called our Direct Connect portal, which we are patent pending on. They are researching us now, so we are in the next phase of that. We expect one of these days it's going to be patent approved. Why? Because we created it. I mean, no one else has it, obviously. That's what a patent is. And why is that so important? Because what happens to the information with the energy suppliers, there's 2 different types of pricing styles, pricing methods that they use. On smaller locations, a smaller user, they're pretty general. They're more of a vanilla type experience. So there's a number out there called the rack rate. And the rack rates basically are the suppliers that say, you know what, for any arrangement of qualifiers under a particular amount of usage, and let's say the usage is 500,000 kilowatts, whatever it is, and every supplier has their same. A 500,000 kilowatt usage would be a McDonald's type size, okay? Anything smaller than that in usage, they have what they call rack rates. And rack rates, every supplier comes up with their rack rates across every utility, across every state, across every deregulated area in the country on a daily basis. Now, think about this for a second. 16 deregulated states for electricity, 30 some odd deregulated states for natural gas, multiple utilities. The state of New York alone has 9 different utilities in it. The state of Georgia has Georgia Natural Gas, 1 natural gas. New Jersey has 7. Pennsylvania has 8 different utilities. So every utility has to, these suppliers create these pricing presentations called a rack rate for every potential possibility. Now we get 40 or 50 or 60 of these in on a daily basis. That number might be a little smaller, but we get them in on a daily basis with all then different types of caveats to it, all right? And why is that important? Because your typical broker out there, John Smith broker, what they do is they're working with a supplier. They will get a price for a smaller location. They'll get the data for the smaller location, LOA, LOR, billing statements. They'll take it. They'll go on the rack rate. They'll pick the rack rate of one company. They'll take it back to the client, same day, a lot of times, and say, Mr. Client, this is the best price I found, which is telling the truth. It's the best price he found because it's the only price he looked at. It's because it's the only price available to him because they only have a relationship, the broker themselves, with a supplier or 2 or 3. I'm telling you, if you had to do this manually, to go through 60 or 7, because every day they're different. The prices are different every day, and this is just the smaller clients, okay? Now think about if you had to do it manually and look at a McDonald's, a single McDonald's, and go through 30 or 40 different rack rates. It just takes forever. You couldn't do it. Well, our Direct Connect portal organizes all of that and does the majority of it automated, and soon it will do all of it automated, 100%. No manual interaction soon. We're not there yet, but soon when it comes to rack rates. So when you turn in a deal, okay, the other thing that happens, our Direct Connect portal puts things in a queue. So we want to make sure that as information's coming into us, whoever's information was to us first gets processed prior to somebody who's coming in after. So there are certain times of the year, like now in the shoulder time of the year, kind of between summer and between winter, on both sides, spring and fall. Typically, there are more deals processed because pricing. We're in a supply-demand arena. So the supply and the demand is lower, so the supply is higher, which means prices are lower. So it's a good time, spring and fall, to do business. So that's rack rate. So think about it. In our world, what happens? The data comes into our office, LOA, LOR, and billing statements from any deregulated state in the country. All right. So you might, if you send it in on a Tuesday, and you've been in another organization that got it back to you Tuesday afternoon, how could they do that? Well, because Tuesday morning, before they saw any deal, they picked the price, and if the price came in from that location or that area, they just put the price back out. They didn't compare that price to 5 other suppliers, or they didn't compare the price, like in our world, to 25 other suppliers on the rack rate. They just gave one price and it went back out immediately. In our world, we don't do that. We are committing to our client and to our field agent that we're going to find the best price, not just competitive, the best. Well, the best price takes some time. It takes a little bit of effort. It takes going through multiple different rack rates. Now, again, our Direct Connect portal organizes it, but there still is a little bit of a manual process, and that's why it might take 2 days or 3 days to get a smaller deal back. And if we've got 12 deals in one day, and your deal happens to be the 13th, it might take another day after that. So on smaller deals, you're wanting to let your clients know it's going to be a few days, it's 5 to 7 days even. And the other reason, just so each one of you are clear why we do it, why do we take the time? Why do we make sure we're not overcharging the client when it comes to our commissions and when it comes to pricing? And the reason for that is our goal is to keep the client for the life of the client's business. So our goal is not to just get a client today, overprice them, not shop their price, give them any price out there, and let them find somebody else to do it better tomorrow. Our price is once you get it, our process is once you get us the information, then we go through everything needed to give a industry standard commission and best price possible. And why is that important? Because 2 years later, we're going to do the same thing. And 2 years after that, we're going to do the same thing. Sometimes it's 3-year contracts. Sometimes it's 1-year contracts. Sometimes it's 15-month contracts, depending on the client's needs. But our entire motivation from the second Avion gathers the data is to create an environment where long-term residual income is being created for the field agent. How do we do that? We create an effective and efficient process for the client that even if they wanted to, they could not do on their own as efficiently or effectively as us because of our relationships. And we take all the burden and all the work off the client. So they are asking us to do it over and over and over. Every contract, when it comes back up for renewal, that's why our retention rate is over 91%. So for those of you out there that are new or around here for a while, on a smaller deal, if it ends up taking 4 or 5 days to get the price back, understand that what that 4 or 5 days is doing right here in the beginning is setting that client up to have a lifelong relationship, strong business relationship with Avion, which means your residual income is stronger and stronger and stronger the long term. That's on a smaller deal. Now, on larger deals, it goes from rack rate to a competitive process where they literally have 7 different components. Every supplier does it differently, but there's 7 different measurements that a supplier looks at prior to giving a price. For example, we just got in a hotel in New York City. Well, a hotel that's using about 3 million kilowatts, so that's a pretty substantial user. Their bill is $30,000, $40,000 a month, somewhere in that neighborhood. Well, that 3,000 kilowatts, or 3 million kilowatts, about 250 to 250,000 kilowatts a month. Just about every competitive retail energy supplier in the state of New York would want to bid on that. We could literally, on something like that, have 13 or 14 or 15 different suppliers all bidding on it. Now, every one of those suppliers have 7 different measurements that they have to go find, educate themselves on to develop a price to then put it back into our system to go on our pricing presentation sheet. So think about the mechanics for a second. Here you are, you're the person, you did your hard work, you used your relationship, you got an LOA and LOR signed, and 3 months worth of billing statements for a hotel in New York. You get it into our system, and then it comes into our Direct Connect system. Our Direct Connect system then automatically, with a couple clicks of a button, okay, automatically then puts it out to bid to every supplier that we've created relationships with in New York City, for example, which is the Con Ed utility. So every large supplier that wants to bid on that will have the opportunity to do it. Now, once it goes out of our office, it's out of our hands. You know, it goes back in, it goes into 16 different bidding centers, our collection centers in 16 of these different billion-dollar suppliers. And they're all saying, okay, gosh, look here, guys, we got a new 3 million kilowatt deal from Avion. Let's give it our best price. Well, they know they need to give us our best price because they know, the suppliers know from 9 years of working with us, their price is going to go next to every other supplier in that utility, okay, competing against each other. So the suppliers, the 9-year relationship, the suppliers know they need to be competitive. Well, for them to be competitive, they have to do their true due diligence and figure out, based on the 7 different factors of pricing, what's their best price possible. Now, if any one supplier has 15 deals in front of ours, they don't get to ours the second we send it to them. It takes some time. On a larger deal, it might be 10 days. It might 10 working days, 2 weeks. Might be a little long, typically not longer than that. I can tell you when it will be longer than that, and this is an absolute. We had a restaurant chain out of the Northeast. They had 43 locations across 7 utilities. And in the 8th utility, there was only one location. 43 in 7 utilities. They're 44th in one utility. Now, we had to get the LOA, LOR, and billing statements for all 43 locations. We had to separate those locations into utilities. We then put the process out to bid per utility, okay? And, just gathering the data on something like that might take a month or so. But we get it in, it goes out, and literally in this case, 6 different suppliers out of the 8 different RFPs we put out for pricing, there were 6 different winners. Each utility had a different supplier who won. And why is that important? It's important because here's the client over here with 43 different locations, 44 different locations, about 10 million SU, which means 10 million SU a year. I mean, they're using some natural gas, electricity in all those locations, quite a bit. And, by the time we get all the data in and everything, it just takes some time. It took, in that process, that probably took 3 weeks before we got it all done, in, out for bid, 7 different pricing presentation sheets, and 6 different winners, or 8 different pricing presentation sheets and 6 different winners. Why is that important? Because the client then says, wow, I could have never done that on my own. Look at these prices. The prices were extremely competitive. We took all the work. The client never has to be concerned about going into, getting out of contract again. And for the field agent who got that business, that particular client alone is worth over $10,000 a year worth of income. Now I ask you the question. If it takes 3 weeks for us to do our due diligence, for us to get it all done so the client is 110% satisfied, isn't that 3 weeks worth the wait? The client is extremely excited. The long-term residual is all set up because we'll go through the exact same process. In this case, 3 years later, okay? They signed 3-year contracts. We'll go through the same process 3 years later. And your residual income is secure for 3 years. In this case, $10,000 a year off of that one client. And in, 33 months of a 36-month contract, or 30 months into a 36-month contract, we'll go right back into the renewal process. So your income is secure. So as you're talking to your clients, you can explain some of that, but really what you want to tell your clients is, listen, we've got a very unique system when it comes out the other side, and Mr. Client, when you get our presentation, our presentation sheet. I promise you, you're going to be completely satisfied. On a smaller client, it might take 5 to 7 days. On a larger client, it might take 10 to 12 working days. On a multi-location, multi-state, multi-utility client, it might take 3 weeks. It might take 3 months. You just don't know. We literally had a shoe store that had 272 locations. It took us 90 days just to collect some of the data, but now it's completely organized, and we do that contract after contract after contract, utility after utility. And the 17 locations that were in one utility up there in that area, they were all bid together, but the 12 locations just in the utility next to it, different price and different supplier winner. But who's the overall beneficiary? The person we committed to from day one, and that is our client. We always put the client first and make sure that the best pricing is available to them. Now, one of the larger challenges we have, entrepreneurs and the big personalities that we tend to attract here, we've had sales agents that will literally see a price on a smaller deal typically. They'll see a price, and then they're concerned about the price for whatever reason. And what we always tell people, listen, we're not the decision maker when it comes to which price, which term. That's the client's job. So our job is to present the client with the information. It's the client's job to decide what they want to do. Which price, which supplier, which term. They do that, we put it back into our system, we pop out a contract, and everything is done. And, I want people to understand that the time it takes in the beginning, because there are other organizations out there, no kidding, and they'll do it, and they'll say, we get a price back out in 25 minutes. Well, they're doing that because they have one price, and they got the price in the morning. We never do that, never, because if we do that, we're cheating the client, we're harming your relationship with the client, and the likelihood of renewal is less than 50%, less than 20%. When we take the time to go through our whole process, find the best pricing out there, then we're securing the stability of the client. We're building a relationship. The client trusts us because our relationship is being built strong. And from that trust, they're looking for us to do it over and over. And how does that extrapolate out into the benefit for the field? That's how and why our long-term residual income is so powerful. Think about this, and I'll close with this, Rick. Think about if you're somebody out there today, and you've got a 6-figure-a-year income potential. We literally have a system to where if you as the field, because we don't know who you know. We can't get LOAs signed for you. We can't get LORs signed for you. It's not our job to get the bills. That's your job. Now, we'll help you. Rick was on the phone with a gentleman today out of Southern Illinois from a field agent that it's his role to set up calls, set them up well, so Rick can use his wisdom and talk to the end user. It's a brand new field agent. I'm sure we'll have him on a call someday. Brand new field agent. He doesn't have the knowledge yet to share the wisdom of our system with the client. Rick does. So in this particular case, that young man's role is to get Rick on the phone. After he does it a few times, he'll get in the hang of it. He'll be able to do it by himself. But basically, the field's job, LOA, LOR, 3 months of billing statements. If you can get 12 months, 12 months worth of billing statement. The more data we have, the better we can price it. Our job is to get it into our Direct Connect portal. The portal organizes it. We create an environment where all of the suppliers get the data the way they need it, the way they want it. We get it back over a period of time. Sometimes it's 3 days. Most of the times it's 5 days on smaller deals. Most of the time on larger deals, it's probably 10 days. And if you tell your client ahead of time, Mr. Client, you've got a larger location here, probably going to take us 10 business days. Client won't mind as long as they know ahead of time. They just won't mind. And sometimes what happens is in our enthusiasm, and I'm the worst at this. I'm the worst. Mr. Jim's great at it. And he always says to me, Joe, you can't say that. His Mr. Jim's role is always, make a commitment and overperform the commitment. Well, in my enthusiasm sometimes I'll say, hey, look, we're the greatest thing since sliced bread, and we'll get you a price as fast as we possibly can. And I learned what I was doing is I was setting the client up for disappointment out of my own enthusiasm. So I had to quell my enthusiasm, not in a way of harming the excitement, but more in a focus to make sure that I'm keeping the client's expectations in a real position, in a real expectation. And from that, the truth is, it's really up to you. If every week you went out and you found a new client that would be interested in our system, basically, you've got the 8-second question out there. Ask clients on a weekly basis. If you did that once a week and only 20% of them said yes, the amount of income you could grow is quite tremendous. If once a week you spoke with somebody, you asked somebody at your church, at the ball game, at your Little League, wherever, hey, how's your financial future look? Are you interested in additional income streams? If you said that just once a week to people, over time, if just 20% said yes, the duplication possibility, which I'm going to get into next week in a bigger way, is extraordinary. The BidPoint system is created to reward people that help clients go through our system and get best pricing, and to reward people for exposing our opportunity to bring a brighter future for people. And, most people out there, regardless of the economy, are still questioning how they're going to survive in the future. Well, we've got the answer in everything we've created. So, Rick, thanks for having me on the call. I hope that helps people understand our process a little bit more, the backside of our process. And even though it might be a little frustrating and sometimes we get a little impatient, we want the price as soon as possible, the length of time it takes to get the price is really making sure that the client's needs are put first, and as a consequence of the client's needs being first, we're stabilizing our renewal process, which stabilizes people's long-term residual, and it really starts right in those first 2 weeks. So, Rick, thanks for having me on the call. Look forward to talking to you guys next week.
Appreciate that, Joe. And just to back up what Joe was saying, always talk in terms of that we offer custom pricing. So, a custom pricing is a process. And so setting that proper expectation with the client is huge. It's also a differentiator. So just know that. I want to say this too. Anyone who hasn't been through a launch call process, get scheduled with a launch call. Have a deeper conversation with myself and Joe and get yourself, it's one thing to join, it's another thing to get launched, okay? And we're having a lot of success with people that we get to know a little bit better. We get to know a little bit better about how their contacts work for them and how we can kind of strategically go after that and help them do that. And you'll have a lot of success if you take advantage of that process. It won't be something we can offer forever as being Joe and I. We'll have other layers in between as we grow the company. But I want to make sure that everybody knows that that's out there. If you want to do a launch call, schedule it, Rick at BidPoint.co. We prefer 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Time, weekdays for that. But anyway, I want to put that out to you once again, Rick at BidPoint.co. Hope everybody has an awesome day and an awesome week. This will be recorded, and this will be something you want to listen to over and over so that you understand why we're different. And that's important to you. It's important to your clients. It's important to people you want to attract to BidPoint as well. So thank you all. God bless. Have an awesome day.